There's a recent article about why drivers violate the hours of service, mainly with electronic logs, but we'll take a look. Why do you think drivers violate the hours of service? I figured out a few reasons. Let's see if you agree. Hello, and welcome to Trucking Answers. I'm Mark, your over-hour host. Let's look at reasons why drivers might violate the hours of service and go over hours. Ho. All right. Well, the first reason, and these are not in any particular order, would be that the company makes you do it. They're like, get this load delivered or you're fired, that kind of thing. Or, we won't give you any more loads, that kind of thing. So a company might basically tell you, hey, do it or else. And of course, depending on the backbone of the driver and how much they might need money, they might just go ahead and do it. Another reason might simply be greed. It isn't that the company asks you to do it. It's that the driver's like, if I work more, I'm going to make more money. So I'm just going to work as much as possible and forget this hours of service thing. I'll drive whenever I feel like driving. So that could be another reason. Poor planning on the company's part for delivery appointments and this kind of stuff, where they're like, they may not make you do it, but the delivery appointment stretches it a little bit and you do it. So poor planning, company planning, a lot of it can be attributed to that. How about this? There's no parking. So you'd like to park and be legal, but there isn't, and you end up going over hours because you can't find a place to park because this truck stops full, that truck stops full. People are parked across 3 spots. They have no idea what they're doing, and you get held up and you run over hours that way. So parking can be a big situation in this, and there's not a good way around that. I think some people go over a chipper receiver and don't realize that there's an exemption for this. Some companies may not allow you to use it. I don't know why. But there's an exemption. You can find the nearest safe legal parking from there as long as they don't let you park there. So there is that exemption. And some drivers actually probably abuse that. And they go way past, and that could be another violation. But you can always park legally if a shipper or receiver holds you up. This doesn't count for truck stops, though. So if you leave there legal and then get to the truck stop and there's no parking and that pushes you over hours, no, that's not how the exemption works. But if you're held up, there is an exemption for that. I think some of it are drivers are going home. So we see this a lot, maybe weekends and before holidays, which are coming up here. Drivers head home and they're like, oh, 2 hours or 10 minutes or whatever it is, right? Forget it. I'm going home. I'm not going to spend a whole nother night in the truck because I'm so close to my house. And I think there's something to be said for that. You can be 8 minutes from your house, and legally, you can't get back, depending on your company's policies or whatever, because I know somebody's typing right now, Mark, PC, I get PC. Okay, depends, but I think there should be that kind of exemption, but there currently, just depends on how it goes. I think a lot of it going home could be a lot of the violations. How about this? I think this is a great one. Drivers don't know how to use a paper log, so they violate. I mean, we get this sometimes. So somebody's ELD, for whatever reason, stops working. Technology, not 100% yet, even though we're going to let cars and trucks drive themselves around. All right, another video for that. But then these drivers have to run a paper log until we can get this thing fixed out. And they're like, I've never done a paper log. And so they end up violating on their paper log because they don't know how to use it. So I think that should be something that's still taught, right? Paper log, because you got to have one. You might have to use it. But some drivers get violations on a paper log because they've never done one. And really, that's a company problem. If you're a company driver, companies should ensure that people are ready to go on the road. No matter how much experience they have, they should show that they can still use a paper log. So paper logs are part of the violation problem for hours of service. I think weather and traffic is another one. So you have this adverse driving conditions, but that still has a limit on it. You can sit in traffic for hour after hour after hour and go beyond even the adverse conditions. And that is then a violation. There should be some way around that, but of course the DOT is all strict on this. Oh, well, you only need this much time. You can sit for hours after hours, days, right? And on the road legally, right, you wouldn't be able to sleep or berth it. So it just depends. I think weather, that kind of thing, it could be an accident. Weather stops you and you get a violation that way. That's an hours of service problem. That should be addressed. I think, of course, the biggest reason for violations is pay. All right, when you're paid by the mile and regulated by the hour, I think that's a real problem. Drivers feel like, rightly so, that they're not being paid for their time, and so they need to put more miles on because you're paid by the mile, many drivers. On the waiting time, a lot of it isn't paid. Fueling the truck's not paid. Doing paperwork's not paid. All this extra time that's logged isn't paid. And so drivers go and violate the hours of service just to make the money that they should have been making anyways, because all this other time should, of course, be paid. What if you're on household goods miles still, like it's 1977? Rocking bell bottoms, getting paid on household goods miles, all right? You are getting hosed out of a lot of miles. You have to put even more miles on just to make a decent living that you would have had you been paid properly in the first place. Once trucking wraps its head around the fact that, drivers should get paid for their time, and I'm seeing a lot of this. I'm seeing salary. I saw one the other day, $110,000 a year salary being advertised for an experienced driver. So not bad. That's an interesting way to do it. We need to change the pay system because the system itself is set up for drivers to violate the hours of service. The more that it's set up for miles, the more you violate. And remember this, when you violate hours of service, they don't need as many drivers. So if you'll do more than one driver's work, basically, you make less money. And it's hard to understand that. But if you violate, that means they don't need another driver to do that load. You'll do 2 drivers' work for 1 driver's pay. The more pressure there is on the industry to need drivers, the higher everybody's pay goes. We need to put as much pressure on the industry as possible to get the pay increasing. So those are what I came up with. What do you come up with? Let me know what you think. Another way to why drivers violate the hours of service. Why would they do it, especially voluntarily, all right? Thanks for watching. We'll be back soon with another Trucking Answers.